Well, my father was Francis Moseley, and he was a self-taught electromechanical engineer who was very interested in steam shovels and trains and electrical things and ham radio and everything when he was young. And so he had a wide range of technical interests. And he'd always wanted to have a live steam railroad. And when I was a child, probably 6 or 7, he got some of this Buddy L equipment that came out in the 30s, which is that stamped steel stuff on, I'm not sure the gauge, 4-inch gauge roughly. And we had that set up in our backyard in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where he was working for Collins Radio at the time. And then when he came out to California, he went down to Little Engines and got their castings for a couple of 060 switchers. And he started working on those with a machinist from his company. And they built those, and he's not unlike, or I'm not unlike him, in that he got the engine running early but worked on it for the next 18 years. My dad liked to make stuff, and so he put propane on his 060, and then he knew it needed to have an automatic regulator so that if the pressure dropped, the draft would increase, and also the flow of propane would increase. So the engine would just sit there and hold pressure without anybody attending to it. And so that made it very easy to do. And so he liked that kind of stuff. And then he decided he wanted a Pyle National M06 generator, and he made one of those in lost wax castings and realized that people would want them. And so he made them in both inch and inch-and-a-half scale, and they became known as the Moseley generator. And it was de rigueur at one time to have one on your steam engine. So he got to be quite well known in the hobby. He was involved in the Los Angeles Live Steamers and went to Seymour Johnson's, and then he was involved with Gordon Corwin and Jack Sessoms and the Riverside Gang, and so he was involved in the hobby a lot.
Also, he made a NC milling machine to do side
oh yeah,
rods, right?
Well he had my father had working in his home workshop. He was running another company at the time, but when he was working on his side rods and stuff, he got tired of cranking the handle. So he made a electromechanical power feed to go on his closet milling machine. And that morphed into the Servo Products Company power feed. And so that company got started, and I worked on that company with him for quite a few years. And those were sold for, all around the world, but mostly in the U.S. to go on the ends of Bridgeport mills. And then meanwhile, he started making this turbine for the Pyle National, and he wanted to have the ability to cut the curved blades of the turbine wheel. So he got the engineers at Servo to work with him and come up with a CNC that would do that. And so they did that, and then of course that became a product in its own right as well. So he had several different products that came out of his shop needs that turned out that they were of more universal appeal than just what he wanted to do for himself. So he was a very inventive guy, and invented the graphic recorder, the XY graphic recorder, and he has the patent he had the patent on the automatic direction finder way back in the 30s, which has saved a lot of lives in airplanes because it prevented people from getting mixed up about which way the radio signal was coming from that they were relying on to navigate. So he was involved in all that kind of stuff, the instrument landing system, Hewlett-Packard Company on the HP board. So he was a fairly accomplished guy.